It's just past 7 o'clock a.m. when Dr. Elijah Brooks pulls into the staff parking lot at St. Catherine's Regional Hospital. The sun is barely up, but the ER is already buzzing. Gunshot victim coming in from downtown, 2 overdoses, a car crash on I-94. It's going to be a long shift. Elijah doesn't mind. He thrives under pressure. He grabs his coffee, throws on his white coat, and heads toward the entrance when a police cruiser suddenly blocks his path. "Excuse me?" Elijah says, confused. The officer, a white cop in his mid-40s with a stern face and mirrored sunglasses, steps out, hand already on his belt. "You work here?" he demands. Elijah lifts his hospital badge. "Yes, I'm a trauma physician. I'm due in ER." The officer cuts him off. "This car registered under your name?" "Yes, is there a problem?" "Step out of the vehicle," the officer says, voice rising. "I haven't done anything wrong," Elijah replies, calmly but firmly. "I'm a doctor. I'm on my way into surgery." The officer suddenly grabs his arm. Elijah jerks back, stunned. "What are you doing?" "Stop resisting." Before Elijah can process what's happening, he's slammed against the hood. His coffee spills. His stethoscope clatters to the ground. Within seconds, he's in handcuffs, right there, in the hospital parking lot, in front of a growing crowd of nurses, interns, and patients. A nurse, Tanya Ruiz, runs outside. "That's Dr. Brooks. He's our lead trauma doctor. Let him go!" The officer doesn't respond. Elijah is silent now, breathing hard through his nose, his face pressed to the hot hood of his car. Tanya starts filming. Inside, word spreads quickly. Someone shouts, "They arrested Elijah," and within minutes, the ER floor is buzzing with disbelief. Dr. Patel, the chief of surgery, storms outside. So does Dr. Ramsey, the hospital director. "What the hell is going on?" Ramsey demands. The officer shrugs. "Suspicious vehicle. No cooperation." "That man saved 6 people's lives last week," Ramsey snaps. "You just pulled our lead trauma surgeon out of an ER shift during a level 1 emergency." Ramsey's voice sharpens. "Release him, right now." But it's too late. Elijah is already being pushed into the back seat of the cruiser. The door slams. The car pulls away. Ramsey turns to Tanya. "Did you get it?" "All of it," she says, holding up her phone. By noon, the video is online. By 3 p.m., it has over 600,000 views. And by 7 p.m., a new sign is taped to the hospital doors. St. Catherine's closed until justice is served. Inside, the staff meet in the break room. Uniforms still on, but no one working. Doctors, nurses, custodians, all sitting shoulder to shoulder. "If they can do that to Elijah," Dr. Patel says, "what makes you think they won't do it to any of us?" Someone speaks up from the back. "We don't heal a system by pretending it's not broken." The room falls silent. Then one by one, the hands go up. A vote. A stand. Because when the ones who save lives are treated like criminals, the world has no excuse not to notice. By midnight, the video of Dr. Elijah Brooks being slammed onto his own car has surpassed 2 million views. News outlets pick it up fast. Local reporters are first. Then the national ones come calling. Black ER doctor arrested while reporting to work. Hospital staff shuts down in protest after doctor detained. Medical racism? Viral video sparks outrage. On Twitter, hashtags explode across trending charts. #Justice for Dr. Brooks, #hands-off. Our healers, #St. Catherine, shutdown. In a studio apartment 2 states away, Malik Turner, an independent journalist known for exposing police abuse, leans forward in his chair, rewinding the footage frame by frame. "He never even raised his voice," Malik mutters, staring at the paused video. "Not once." He starts drafting a report. Meanwhile, at St. Catherine's Hospital, the lobby is eerily quiet. No nurses calling out names, no paging system buzzing, no ER activity at all. Every hallway light is on, every room is ready, but no one is clocking in. The protest is real and growing. In the break room, staff gather again, now joined by night shift and administrative workers. Ramsey stands beside Tanya, visibly shaken but composed. "We're getting calls from the state health board," he says. "They want to know why we've shut down." Tanya answers before anyone else can. "Because one of our own was arrested for being black in a lab coat." Murmurs of agreement fill the room. Dr. Patel steps forward. "If we go back to work without demanding something real, reform, accountability, then we're saying this is normal, that Elijah's arrest is just another day." A young EMT speaks from the corner. "Patients are suffering. We took oaths." How do we balance that? Tanya nods. We're not abandoning care. We're redirecting it. Emergency services have been rerouted to nearby hospitals. We're not shutting down healthcare, we're shutting down silence. Outside, candles line the sidewalk. Former patients begin to gather, people Elijah once helped. A young mother who nearly bled out after childbirth. A teen who survived a motorcycle crash. An elderly man whose heart stopped twice on the table. He saved my life, the teen says on camera. Now who's gonna save his? By morning, national media vans fill the block. A CNN correspondent interviews Dr. Ramsey Live. What do you say to people who claim this protest is extreme? Ramsey doesn't flinch. You can't call a stand for dignity extreme when the system's already extreme in its injustice. Elijah is still being held. The department releases a vague statement. Officer acted on suspicion of a stolen vehicle. Investigation pending. But footage proves otherwise. The car wasn't stolen. Elijah had registration. No theft report existed. Just a black man in scrubs and a white coat getting out of a nice car before sunrise. Evelyn Carter, a civil rights attorney known for her relentless lawsuits, watches the video over coffee. She doesn't blink once. Then she makes the call. I'll take the case, she says. Back at the hospital, Jasmine Howard, the head nurse, gathers the staff. Elijah stood for everyone, so now we stand for him. Because when injustice targets one healer, it wakes up the entire ward. The hallway outside the Brookridge City Jail smells like bleach and cold metal. Evelyn Carter stands still, her briefcase in one hand, a folded stack of legal documents in the other. A corrections officer approaches, clipboard in hand. You here for Dr. Elijah Brooks? I'm his attorney, Evelyn replies, and I want him out, now. The officer shifts uncomfortably. There's still paperwork. There's no charge, Evelyn snaps. There never was. You're detaining a man without cause, without evidence, and without justification. If he's not released within the hour, I'll be filing for unlawful imprisonment and dragging your badge into federal court by sunrise. The officer doesn't argue. He walks away. Inside the holding area, Elijah sits on a bench, head down, palms on his knees. He hasn't slept. He hasn't called anyone. He hasn't needed to, because the world outside has already exploded. The cell door buzzes open. He looks up. Evelyn stands there. Dr. Brooks, she says, calm but direct. Let's go home. He stands slowly. Who sent you? Everyone, she says. The whole damn city. By the time they step outside, reporters are already stationed near the sidewalk. Evelyn shields Elijah with her coat and waves them off. No comment, she says. Not yet. They drive in silence. Elijah stares out the window, watching the early morning light spill over the skyline. I didn't think it would get this far, he says quietly. I did, Evelyn replies, because it always does. Back at St. Catherine's, the parking lot is full, but no one is clocking in. Instead, the hospital has transformed into a community protest zone. There are food trucks, free blood pressure checks, CPR classes for the public, everything except regular medical operations. The message is clear. We heal people, but we won't ignore injustice. When Elijah steps onto the pavement, a nurse spots him first. Dr. Brooks! Heads turn. Conversations stop. Then, applause. Slow at first. Then rising into something thunderous. Doctors in scrubs, janitors in uniform, patients in wheelchairs, all clapping. Not for a hero, but for a man who lived through humiliation and walked back in with his head held high. Elijah raises a hand in greeting, overwhelmed. Tanya rushes up to him, tears in her eyes. We've got your back, we're not going anywhere. Jasmine joins them. They wanted us to be afraid. Instead, they reminded us how strong we are together. Inside the break room, Evelyn sets her files on the table. Here's where we start. Civil rights lawsuit, police misconduct, racial profiling, false arrest. We go after the department, the city, and if we find the order came from higher up, we take them all down. Ramsey looks at her. We're doctors. We're not built for a legal war. You weren't built for this protest either, she says, but you're still here. Mateo, the hospital's head of outreach, raises a question. What's the goal here? Justice for Elijah or something bigger? Evelyn looks around the room. We prove that medicine and justice can't exist in separate lanes. If hospitals are sacred, then so are the people who work in them. And when one of them is attacked, we all bleed. Because healing a city sometimes means breaking the silence first. By noon the next day, Evelyn Carter holds a press conference on the hospital steps. The crowd gathered isn't just press, it's families, med students, clergy, and former patients holding up signs. We trust our doctor, not the badge. Black scrubs are not a threat. St. Catharines stands tall. Microphones extend toward Evelyn as cameras flash. We are filing a civil lawsuit against the Brookridge Police Department for the unlawful arrest and racial profiling of Dr. Elijah Brooks, she declares. The officer involved didn't act alone. He acted under a system that empowered him to profile a black man in a lab coat as a threat, not a healer. She doesn't raise her voice, but every word lands like a hammer. And let's be clear, this isn't just about Elijah. This is about every black professional who's been followed in stores, questioned on their own property, or, as we've seen, handcuffed in front of their workplace. Inside the hospital, Dr. Ramsey watches from a hallway monitor. Around him, staff nod in quiet agreement. Even patients in waiting rooms murmur support. Meanwhile, down at the Brookridge Police Department, the chief scrambles for control. In a cramped office, Chief Danvers slams a folder shut. "Why the hell didn't anyone tell me we were dealing with a doctor?" His deputy, pale and sweating, mutters, "The officer thought the car was suspicious, said the registration didn't match." "It did match," Danvers yells. "He had the registration in his wallet. We look like fools." An aide enters with a phone. "Sir, the mayor's on line 1. Danvers sighs and lifts the receiver. "Yeah." The voice is cold. "You've got one job, Chief. Keep this from becoming a federal case. If Evelyn Carter pushes this, we won't be dealing with a PR issue. We'll be under a civil rights investigation." Danvers rubs his temple. "I'll handle it." But outside, nothing is under control. That evening, Malik Turner releases a deep dive report. What happened to Dr. Brooks happens every day. Here's the proof. He presents 3 other cases, black professionals mistaken for criminals, 2 of them medical workers, all of them arrested without cause. One woman, a pediatrician, was cuffed in her own driveway. Dr. Brooks is lucky there was a camera, Malik says, because this isn't rare, it's just rarely recorded. The video hits 1 million views in 6 hours. The mayor calls an emergency meeting. The hospital board holds a private session. And the city council is suddenly flooded with emails demanding the officer be fired, and that real reform follow. Back in the hospital break room, Elijah reads an open letter written by a group of local physicians. "We, as medical professionals, refuse to serve a system that devalues our lives outside the exam room. We will not be silent. We will not be divided. We stand with Dr. Brooks." He leans back in his chair, hands clasped. "This isn't just a protest anymore," he says. "It's a reckoning." Jasmine places a coffee in front of him. "Good. Because the world finally stopped pretending doctors don't bleed. Because some systems don't crack under pressure. They crumble when the right people stop asking permission to speak." 2 days after the lawsuit is filed, Evelyn receives an anonymous message in her encrypted inbox. No subject line, no signature, just a sentence. "Check precinct logs from June 3rd. Look at the tags marked, flagged Brooks." She leans back in her chair, eyebrows lifting. That night, she meets with Malik Turner at his apartment, walls covered in sticky notes, whiteboards full of timelines, screens showing paused news clips. She shows him the message. Malik squints at the screen. "Sounds like someone from inside." "Or someone trying to deflect," Evelyn replies. "Only one way to find out." He pulls out his laptop and logs into a public access records portal. Within minutes, they find it. A dispatch log from the early morning of June 3rd, the day Elijah was arrested. There, in black and white, is the line, 6:48 a.m. Subject seen entering staff lot, vehicle tag matched, flagged Brooks E. Officer R. Mason. "Flagged?" Evelyn says. "Flagged for what?" But there's no reason listed. No warrant, no stolen vehicle alert, just the officer's report. And a note in a second column. Additional comment redacted, internal eyes only. Malik exhales. They tagged him before the arrest, which means this wasn't spontaneous. It was targeted. Evelyn's phone buzzes. Another email. Officer Mason had access to HR records from his sister, St. Catharines admin team. She made complaints about Elijah last year. All were dismissed. She still blamed him for her demotion. Malik looks up. "Oh, that's motive." Evelyn nods slowly. "And corruption." Back at the hospital, Elijah walks through the pediatric wing with Jasmine. It's the first time he's worn his white coat again since the arrest. Children wave, parents nod. One father stands up and grips his hand. "My son's still here because of you," he says. But Elijah's smile is distant. He's grateful, but heavy. "I thought coming back would make me feel normal again," he says to Jasmine later. But nothing's normal anymore. She touches his shoulder. "Good. Normal is what got us here." That afternoon, Evelyn calls a meeting with the hospital board. She shows them the log, the flagging, the redacted notes. "This wasn't a traffic stop gone wrong," she says. "This was planned." Dr. Ramsey frowns. "You're saying the officer had access to hospital employee info?" "Yes, through his sister. She had a grudge. She weaponized it." One of the board members leans forward. "If that's true, this isn't just a civil case, it's criminal. And it's only just started," Evelyn replies. Later that evening, Malik releases another expose. Flagged and framed. Internal leaks reveal targeted arrest of Black doctor. The story goes viral overnight. Law professors, civil rights leaders, even celebrities begin weighing in. One tweet reads, "When being excellent still gets you arrested, we don't need reform. We need accountability." In the quiet of his apartment, Elijah watches the video in silence. Then he picks up his phone and calls Evelyn. "I want to testify," he says, "on camera. I want people to hear it from me." Evelyn nods on the other end. It's time, because the truth doesn't always leak. It breaks loose when silence loses its grip. The camera is already recording when Elijah Brooks walks into the studio space Malik has set up in the back of a local community center. Nothing flashy, just a clean backdrop, soft lighting, and a single chair in the middle of the frame. Evelyn is off to the side, quietly observing. Jasmine stands near the back, arms folded, trying not to cry. Amir is drawing in a notebook next to her. Elijah sits down. No script, no lawyer, just truth. Malik adjusts the mic. "Whenever you're ready." Elijah breathes in. "My name is Dr. Elijah Brooks. I'm a father, a husband, a trauma physician at St. Catherine's Regional Hospital, and 10 days ago, I was arrested for going to work." The silence that follows isn't awkward. It's necessary. The weight of it fills the frame. "I wasn't speeding, I wasn't yelling, I wasn't a suspect. I was wearing scrubs and carrying coffee, walking toward a hospital where lives were already depending on me. And still, I was treated like a criminal." He pauses. "What hurts most isn't the handcuffs. It's knowing that everything I've worked for, all the late nights, the people I've saved, the blood I've cleaned from my own shoes, meant nothing the moment someone decided I didn't look like I belonged." Malik's camera keeps rolling, unedited, raw. Elijah's voice stays steady. "This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't protocol. It was a decision. A targeted, deliberate choice backed by a system that allowed me to be profiled, humiliated, and dragged away from patients who needed me." His eyes narrow. "And it wasn't just me. There are others. We know that now. People in lab coats, in suits, in uniforms. We've all been told that excellence can protect us, but I'm here to say it can't. Not alone." He leans forward. "What protects us is each other. What heals us is truth. What changes things is action. I'm not telling this story for pity. I'm telling it because I refuse to let fear define my future, or my children's." He looks into the lens like he's speaking to every screen in America. "We are not your suspects. We are not your mistakes. We are not your assumptions. We are your doctors, your teachers, your neighbors, and we deserve to breathe, walk, work, and live without fear." He nods once. "That's all I have to say." Malik stops recording. No one speaks for a moment. Then Evelyn quietly says, "That's going to shake the country." Later that night, the video goes live with the title, "Dr. Elijah Brooks Breaks His Silence." Within 2 hours, it passes 1 million views. By morning, it's being played on every major network. Hashtags return with new force. #IMDrBrooks. Healers. Not suspects. Celebrities, hospital networks, even former police officers start reposting. The story becomes more than viral. It becomes personal. At a press conference, the mayor is forced to respond. "We are launching a full internal review of the officer's conduct, and we've placed him on unpaid suspension pending investigation." But the people aren't satisfied. They want change. They want justice. They want resignations. At St. Catherine's, the hospital board meets again. A vote is held. And unanimously, they decide operations will remain suspended until official accountability is made public. Inside the staff lounge, Elijah watches his own video again. Not for pride, but to remind himself that he's no longer invisible. Because once you tell your story, the system can't unhear it, and the world can't look away. The Brookridge City Council chamber is standing room only. For the first time in over a decade, citizens aren't here to petition speed bumps or debate zoning laws. They're here because of a doctor in scrubs who got thrown against his car for doing nothing but going to work. Councilwoman Patrice Lang, one of the few black members on the board, adjusts her glasses and looks around the room. We have 300 public comment submissions and counting, but I'd like to start by inviting Dr. Elijah Brooks to speak first. Elijah rises from the front row, dressed simply. No white coat, no badge, just a calm presence and tired eyes. He steps up to the microphone. "I didn't ask to be here," he begins. "I didn't plan to become a headline or a symbol. But now that I am, I'm not going to waste it." He talks about the arrest, the silence inside the cruiser, the feeling of being reduced to a problem that needed managing. Then he looks up. "I'm here because I know I'm not alone. I'm here because this city deserves better than to have its healers treated like criminals. And I'm here because the system won't change unless people like you stop pretending it works." The room stays quiet, but charged. Councilwoman Lang nods. "Thank you, Dr. Brooks." What follows is a tidal wave of support. A nurse who once treated Elijah's mother stands and says, "He saved my husband's life. I trust him with everything, but that officer treated him like a thief." A teacher speaks next. "Our students watch the video. How do we teach them about justice when this is what they see?" Then, a woman from the back, nervous, quiet. "My name is Dana Mason," she says. "I work in hospital administration, and my brother is the officer who arrested Dr. Brooks." Gasps ripple through the room. All eyes snap toward her. "I didn't know what he planned to do, but I did share employee records with him. I thought it would help me prove Elijah was difficult to work with. I was bitter. I was wrong." She trembles, holding back tears. "I've already given a full statement to the Department of Justice. I'll accept whatever consequences come. But I need this room to hear me. He didn't deserve any of it, and I made it worse." Councilwoman Lang speaks gently. "Ms. Mason, your honesty matters." Evelyn, sitting nearby, gives a small nod. It's not forgiveness, but it's truth. And that counts. By the end of the hearing, the council passes 2 emergency motions. Immediate audit of the Brookridge Police Department's officer conduct and complaint database, formation of a civilian oversight panel with the power to investigate internal bias and misconduct. The crowd erupts in applause. It's not justice, but it's momentum. Outside, Malik Turner interviews Dana Mason quietly near the steps. She's not proud, she's not polished, but she's brave. Inside the hospital, Dr. Patel watches the live stream on his phone. "They're listening now," he says to Tanya. "Finally." Tanya nods. "Let's hope they act before we lose more than faith." At home, Elijah tucks Amira into bed. She clutches his badge in her hand. "Are they still mad at you?" she asks. He kisses her forehead. "Some are, but a lot more people are standing with us now. Because change doesn't begin with justice. It begins when silence turns into confessions and confessions into reform." 2 days after the council vote, federal agents walk through the front doors of the Brookridge Police Department. Their badges gleam under the lobby's flickering fluorescent lights as officers step aside. It's not a raid, it's a reckoning. Clipboards in hand, they begin reviewing records, pulling files, copying hard drives. A sign on the wall reads, "Protect and serve." But no one looks at it today. In a back office, Officer Ryan Mason, the man who arrested Dr. Elijah Brooks, sits across from an internal affairs investigator and 2 federal agents. His hands stay folded. His jaw is tight. "We have your body cam footage," one agent says. "It cuts off right after you approached Dr. Brooks. That's a violation." Mason shrugs. "It glitched." The agent slides a printout across the table. Internal log says it was manually disabled. At the exact moment he asked why he was being arrested. Mason doesn't respond. Another paper. "Dispatch logs show you flagged Dr. Brooks's vehicle the night before, based on information you obtained through your sister. That's illegal access to protected personnel data." Still no answer. Then the investigator leans forward. "Look, you can sit there and act like this is going away, but your badge won't protect you now. We're not talking about policy errors. We're talking about targeted profiling, false arrest, and obstruction." Mason's fingers twitch slightly, but he says nothing. Elsewhere in the building, Chief Danvers paces his office while city attorneys whisper behind closed doors. The mayor's office has already sent word. We will not shield misconduct. Cooperate fully. Outside, the media waits like vultures. Cameras rolling, mics raised, tweets flying in real time. Back at St. Catherine's, the mood is shifting. Doctors and nurses gather in the atrium as Evelyn updates them on the investigation. The DOJ is officially involved, she says. That means subpoena power, testimony under oath, no more sealed files. There are nods around the room, tension, but also relief, Doctor. Ramsey clears his throat. The board has reconvened. We've voted unanimously to keep the shutdown in place until all findings are made public and those responsible are removed. Applause breaks out, not loud but strong. In the corner, Elijah listens quietly. He's not smiling, not yet, but his posture has changed. Shoulders straighter, chin higher, like a man carrying a weight that's finally starting to shift. Later that afternoon, Malik releases a new report titled, Power in the Hands of the People, How a Hospital Became a Movement. He narrates over footage of patients delivering meals to doctors, high school students holding signs, a janitor cleaning windows with a shirt that says, St. Catherine Strong. This isn't just about injustice, Malik says. It's about the people who refuse to return to business as usual. It's about reminding systems that silence is not survival. It's surrender. And they chose to stand. The video trends in minutes. That evening, Elijah receives a call from an unknown number. He answers. A quiet voice speaks. This is Officer Brenda Harlan. I work in the same precinct as Mason. I've seen what he's done and what others have covered up. If you're building a case, I have something to add. Elijah sits up straighter. Are you willing to speak on record? A pause, then, yes, it's time. Because when walls begin to crack, it's the voices inside that finish the collapse. In a quiet corner booth of a diner just outside Brookridge, Officer Brenda Harlan stirs her coffee, eyes darting to the window every few seconds. She's off duty, out of uniform, and more anxious than she's ever been with a badge on her chest. Across from her sits Evelyn Carter, notebook open, recorder on. You're sure this is secure? Brenda asks, voice low. Evelyn nods. Encrypted. Off the record until you say otherwise. Brenda takes a breath. I've been in that department 12 years. I've seen racism dressed up as protocol. I've seen evidence go missing, body cam footage malfunction, reports rewritten to shift blame onto the victims. She pauses, then looks directly at Evelyn. But what happened to Dr. Brooks? That wasn't just bias. That was personal, deliberate. Evelyn leans in. Tell me what you know. Brenda reaches into her purse and pulls out a small flash drive. 2 weeks before the arrest, Officer Mason bragged about how he was going to put that arrogant doctor in his place. Said his sister told him Brooks was a problem at the hospital and that it was only a matter of time before he slipped up. She slides the drive across the table. He said it in the locker room. I had my phone on record by accident, caught the whole thing. When I realized what I had, I saved it and made backups. I didn't know what to do with it. Until now. Evelyn picks it up gently, as if it were evidence made of glass. Brenda, this is huge, but if you testify, you'll be targeted. Brenda smirks bitterly. I already am. They know I'm talking to someone. My shifts got changed. My tires slashed last week. I'm done being silent. Later that evening, Evelyn plays the recording for Malik and Elijah. Mason's voice is unmistakable. That doc walks around like he's untouchable, but he parks that pretty car in the same lot every day. Just needs the right reminder of who's in charge. Elijah's jaw tightens. He doesn't speak. Malik exhales. That's the match. Everything else is the kindling. This is fire. By morning, Malik publishes a story titled, Revenge in Uniform, Leaked Recording Exposes Officer's Personal Grudge Against Dr. Brooks. It spreads like wildfire. Network anchors replay the quote. Editorials call it unforgivable. Medical boards issue statements in support of Elijah. Even national physician associations release open letters calling for a full federal intervention. At the police department, chaos erupts. Chief Danvers is summoned to City Hall. The mayor demands immediate suspension of Mason without pay and an emergency ethics review. But the most powerful moment comes not from a leader or a lawyer, but from Brenda herself. In a press conference later that day, she stands at a podium, uniform on, voice steady. My name is Officer Brenda Harlan, And I'm here to say, what happened to Dr. Brooks wasn't justice. It was vengeance. She looks directly at the cameras. And if telling the truth costs me my job, so be it. At least I'll sleep at night. Inside St. Catherine's, the staff watch live. Elijah turns to Jasmine. She didn't have to do that. No, Jasmine says. But that's what integrity looks like. Because real courage isn't wearing a badge. It's standing up when it would be easier to sit down and stay silent. The morning after Officer Brenda Harlan's press conference, a quiet tension settles over Brookridge. The police department is under a microscope. Protesters line the sidewalks outside, holding signs not just with Elijah's name, but Brenda's too. Thank you, Officer Harlan. Tell the truth, wear the badge. Justice needs whistleblowers. Inside the department, Officer Mason's desk sits empty. Word spreads fast. He's been officially suspended and placed under internal investigation. Some officers applaud it quietly. Others sneer, whispering the word traitor every time Brenda walks by. She ignores them. At St. Catherine's, the board meets again. We're at a tipping point, Dr. Ramsey says. The community is on our side. The media is still focused. But if we don't channel this momentum into long-term reform, all of this could fade. Evelyn nods. That's why we're not just pressing charges, we're proposing legislation. The board raises eyebrows. Elijah's case is powerful, she continues, but this is bigger than one man. We're drafting a bill, the Brooks Act. It would require independent civilian oversight boards for all municipal police departments in the state, mandatory body cam retention, strict disciplinary review for racial profiling complaints. Dr. Patel leans forward. And you think it'll pass? I think, Evelyn says, that no lawmaker wants to be on the wrong side of this story. Meanwhile, Malik Turner is in a podcast studio across town, recording a special live episode titled, From Protest to Policy, Why the Fight for Dr. Brooks Isn't Over. He speaks directly to listeners. When people hear about injustice, they march. When they see it, they protest. But when they organize, that's when systems shake. He reads emails from nurses, students, doctors in training. One reads, I used to think being a good doctor was enough. Not anymore. I want to be the kind who stands up. That evening, Evelyn meets with Elijah and Jasmine over dinner at their apartment. This bill, it could really change things, Elijah says, still absorbing the weight of it. Jasmine adds, you'd be the face of something permanent. I didn't ask to be that, he says. No one ever does, Evelyn replies. But now that you are, you decide what we build from it. Elijah sits in silence for a moment, then nods. Let's build something they can't ignore. The next day, State Representative Mariah Benson, young, black, and fiery, stands on the Capitol steps beside Evelyn, Elijah, and a coalition of physicians and civil rights advocates. Cameras click, reporters lean in. We are proud to introduce the Brooks Act, Representative Benson declares. This is not just a bill, it's a shield. For every professional who has been judged before they spoke, arrested before they acted, or silenced before they had a chance to serve. The crowd roars. At home, Brenda watches the press conference alone. She smiles faintly. She knows the department is colder than ever, but watching this moment unfold, she feels something she hasn't felt in years. Pride. Because protest may spark the fire, but policy is what keeps it burning. It doesn't take long for the pushback to begin. Less than 24 hours after the Brooks Act is introduced, opposition surfaces fast and loud. Conservative talk shows label it anti-police propaganda. Online forums erupt with false claims about Elijah's credentials. Anonymous accounts flood social media with edited clips, aiming to twist the original footage of the arrest. One post reads, "Doctor or not, he acted suspicious. Just comply and move on." Another, "More division, more whining. Let cops do their jobs." Inside St. Catherine's, staff watch the narrative shift with concern. The tide that once surged in their favor begins to swirl with doubt. "It's starting," Jasmine says to Elijah as they scroll through their phones. He sighs. "I knew it would. The moment you challenge power, it starts rewriting the story." In the war room of Evelyn's legal office, the team is already responding. "We need to be strategic," Evelyn says. "We expected blowback, but we answer it with truth, not emotion. Facts, witnesses, data." Malik joins via video call. "I've got 2 former officers from other departments willing to talk, on camera, about how internal culture silences good cops and rewards bad ones. If we go public with it, it'll reframe the story. Evelyn nods. Book them. Meanwhile, Officer Brenda Harlan sits in her parked car outside her apartment. Her windows are fogged with silence. A note had been taped to her locker that morning. Just 4 words, printed in all caps. You'll regret this. No name, no fingerprint, just the weight of a threat with a smirk behind it. Her phone rings. It's Evelyn. We're going to release your full testimony as part of the legislative hearing next week, Evelyn says. Only if you're ready. Brenda looks at the note again, then at her own reflection in the rearview mirror. I'm ready. At the state capitol, hearings for the Brooks Act begin. Representative Mariah Benson opens strong. Let me remind everyone, this isn't an anti-police bill. This is a pro-accountability bill. If you're doing the job with integrity, this law protects you too. Elijah takes the stand again, this time not as a victim, but as a witness to something deeper. I was arrested for being visible, he says to the legislative panel, visible as a black man in a place where I wasn't expected, driving a car I shouldn't own, walking into a hospital people didn't think I belonged to. The Brooks Act isn't about me, it's about anyone who could be next. His words are clipped and calm, but they echo louder than the gavel. Outside the chamber, protesters line up on both sides. Some carry signs reading, "We stand with Elijah." Others chant, "Support law and order." It's no longer a local issue, it's a national flashpoint. That night, Evelyn receives a tip from an anonymous source inside the police department. They're scrubbing internal complaints. Mason's file isn't the only one. She calls Malik immediately. We need to move faster. They're trying to erase history before it's written. Because justice isn't just about what happened. It's about who dares to bury it and who refuses to let it die. It's nearly midnight when Evelyn Carter and Malik Turner meet in the basement of a community tech hub, an old warehouse now turned into a secure digital lab. Malik plugs in a hard drive handed to him by a confidential source from within the Brookridge Police Department. Last week, he says, this log had 6 misconduct complaints against Officer Mason. Now, 2. He pulls up the database side by side, one version from a cloud backup the department didn't scrub, and the current public-facing version. Look, he says, pointing, 3 cases marked as dismissed, 1 settled quietly, and 2 gone. As if they never existed. Evelyn's jaw tightens. And let me guess, those were the ones with actual body cam footage. Exactly. She leans in. We need to go public with this before they erase anything else. Meanwhile, inside the police department, Chief Danvers paces in his office, his phone buzzing with messages from city attorneys and state legislators. They've got no proof, he mutters to himself. But he's wrong. The next morning, Malik releases a bombshell report. Deleted but not gone, Brookridge PD caught tampering with officer files amid Brooks' investigation. The story includes side-by-side comparisons of internal complaint logs, whistleblower quotes, and screenshots showing the deletion timestamps. The city erupts. By noon, state auditors launch an emergency investigation. The Brookridge mayor calls a press conference. What we've learned is unacceptable, she says, voice firm. Effective immediately, an external task force will take control of all internal records. We will preserve what remains and hold accountable those who tried to bury the rest. At St. Catherine's, Elijah sits with Jasmine in the break room, watching the coverage in silence. Jasmine shakes her head. They really thought no one would notice. Elijah responds quietly, they were counting on fear, on people looking away. In that moment, a nurse steps in with a clipboard. There's someone here to see you, she says. He says it's urgent. Elijah walks out into the lobby and stops cold. Standing there is Terrence Lewis, a former patient and now, surprisingly, a former police officer. You saved my son after that warehouse explosion 2 years ago, Terrence says. I owe you more than I can say. Elijah nods slowly. Thank you. Terrence continues, voice lower. And I saw things too, stuff Mason did, stuff that got ignored. I filed complaints. They never went anywhere. He hands over a folded document. That's a printed copy of my report, time-stamped, signed. It was never entered into the official record. Elijah's eyes widen. Would you testify? Terrence nods. You took care of my family. Now it's my turn. That afternoon, Evelyn adds Terrence's name to the witness list for the legislative hearing. Later, in a TV interview, she speaks directly to the camera. They didn't just arrest a doctor. They tried to erase a truth. But people are speaking up. And every story adds weight to justice's side of the scale. Back at the Capitol, Rep. Mariah Benson adds an amendment to the Brooks Act, one requiring independent data preservation and audit trails for all officer complaints in the state. The fight is still uphill, but the walls are cracking. Because systems don't collapse from outside pressure alone, they fall when the people inside stop holding them up. By the end of the week, the Brookridge City Hall is running on overtime. Emails flood in by the hour. Community members, national organizations, and even hospital networks from across the country are writing in support of the Brooks Act. On social media, the movement has transformed from protest to legislative pressure. Passed the Brooks Act. Protect our healers. No more erasure. Inside her office, Rep. Mariah Benson flips through pages of last-minute testimonies. Letters from medical associations, retired judges, and hundreds of ordinary citizens pack the inbox. Never seen this much engagement, her aide mutters. Mariah responds without looking up. Good, that means they're paying attention. Meanwhile, Evelyn prepares for the next public hearing. Brenda Harlan and Terrence Lewis, the former officer who came forward, are scheduled to testify. In a prep room just outside the chamber, Brenda sits quietly, adjusting her uniform collar. Terrence breaks the silence. I thought I left all this behind when I turned in my badge. Brenda smirks. Funny. I thought wearing the badge meant I'd never have to fight this hard for truth. Evelyn looks up from her notes. You're both here because you chose integrity. That's more powerful than any title. The hearing chamber is packed, again, but this time the energy is sharper, focused. The stakes are clear. Brenda takes the stand first. I witnessed Officer Mason talk openly about his intent to target Dr. Brooks, she says. He mocked the idea of consequences. He believed the system would protect him because it always had. Then Terrence steps up. I filed a complaint 2 years ago. It was about Mason using excessive force against a teenager. I signed the forms, I followed the chain of command. Nothing happened. He holds up a paper. This is a copy of that complaint. It was never entered into the official record. I know because I checked, multiple times. And now I know why. It was never meant to exist. Gasps ripple through the chamber. One lawmaker leans forward. Mr. Lewis, why come forward now? Terrence pauses. Because I saw Dr. Brooks take care of my son like he was family. And then I watched him get cuffed like a criminal. I couldn't stay silent after that. After the hearing, a reporter approaches Elijah outside the building. Dr. Brooks, how do you feel about the growing support for the bill? He answers simply, it's not support for me, it's support for truth. Back at St. Catherine's, the hallways remain quiet, lights still on but unused. Yet, despite the shutdown, the hospital's name hasn't faded. It's become a symbol. Outside, a banner hangs from the entrance, closed until justice reopens the door. That evening, Elijah and Jasmine sit together, watching a late-night news segment. The anchor announces, in a historic move, the State Oversight Committee has voted to expedite the Brooks Act for final floor vote, set for next week. Jasmine squeezes his hand. It's happening. Elijah exhales, almost a whisper. Yeah, it really is. Because when silence is broken and truth finds its voice, even the strongest walls begin to fall. The day of the vote dawns gray and quiet, but no one in Brookridge is sleeping in. Downtown, the streets begin to fill before sunrise. Teachers, medical workers, students, clergy, and even retired officers march side by side, holding signs that now read more like declarations than pleas. We're not asking, we're voting. Brooks Act equal our voice in law. Heal the system or shut it down. At the state capitol, security is tight. The rotunda buzzes with anticipation. Reporters set up outside the chamber, broadcasting live. One anchor describes it as the most consequential police reform bill in the state's recent history. Inside her office, Rep. Mariah Benson reviews the final amendments. Evelyn sits across from her, calm but sharp-eyed. We removed any language they could twist, Mariah says. Now it's clear, enforceable, and constitutional. Evelyn nods. Then they're out of excuses. In the gallery, Elijah and Jasmine sit together, hands interlaced. Brenda Harlan is behind them in uniform, a badge on her chest and purpose in her eyes. Terrence Lewis, in a pressed button-down, gives a quiet thumbs up from across the aisle. At exactly 10 a.m., the chamber session begins. The speaker reads the Brooks Act title in full, and the clerk begins calling names. Each lawmaker stands when called. Each one knows the cameras are on and history is watching. One by one, the votes come in. Yes. 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 No. Yes. Yes. Tension tightens with every name. Then, the final call. The clerk looks up. 54 in favor, 19 opposed. A beat of silence. Then the speaker slams the gavel. The Brooks Act passes. The gallery erupts, not in wild cheers, but in a slow, thunderous standing ovation. The kind of applause that doesn't come from celebration, but from release, from justice finally stretching its legs. Jasmine hugs Elijah, tears on her cheeks. Brenda bows her head, hands shaking. Terrence leans back in his seat, letting out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Representative Benson stands at the podium. Today, she says, we didn't just pass a law, we changed the rules. We honored the truth. We made history. Outside, the crowd roars. Bells ring. Phones buzz. News alerts flash. Brooks Act signed into law. State passes sweeping police accountability reform. Inspired by a doctor. Fueled by a movement. At St. Catherine's, the hospital lights seem to glow brighter. A group of nurses gathers in the break room as the news comes in. One whispers, "We did it." Tanya, tears welling in her eyes, walks to the staff intercom. For the first time in weeks, her voice echoes through the halls. St. Catherine's family, justice has arrived. Prepare to reopen. Our fight made a difference. That evening, Elijah stands outside the hospital, looking up at the sign. He doesn't say much, just smiles softly, hand resting on the glass door. Tomorrow, the hospital opens again. But tonight, Brookridge breathes. Because sometimes justice isn't loud, it's steady, deliberate, and built one voice at a time. The doors of St. Catherine's Regional Hospital slide open at 7 o'clock a.m. sharp. Not with a ribbon cutting, not with a press conference, just with purpose. Doctors, nurses, techs, janitors, everyone who stayed through the shutdown walk in wearing their uniforms, their ID badges, and expressions that say, "We never stopped being here. Now the world knows why." Elijah stands at the entrance in his white coat, greeting each person with a quiet nod or a handshake. Dr. Patel steps beside him. Feels different. It is different, Elijah replies. This time, we know what we're walking into, and why it matters. In the lobby, a new bronze plaque is mounted near the front desk. It reads, "This hospital stood still so that justice could move, in honor of those who refused to look away." News crews are stationed across the street, but no one inside poses. This isn't for show, it's for care. As patients begin to trickle in, the ER buzzes to life. Monitors beep, gurneys roll, gloves snap. The rhythm returns, not as a routine, but as a declaration. We're back, and we remember. Meanwhile, at City Hall, Chief Danvers is finally summoned before an internal oversight panel, formed just days after the Brooks Act passed. Inside the hearing room, the mood is clinical, measured, ruthless. A panelist reads from the report. Chief Danvers, under your leadership, your department deleted records, ignored formal complaints, and allowed at least 3 repeat offender officers to avoid discipline. Do you take responsibility? Danvers clears his throat. I was unaware of the extent. The panelist interrupts. That is not an answer. By midday, an announcement is made. Chief Danvers has submitted his resignation, effective immediately. Later, Officer Ryan Mason, still under investigation, is served with formal charges: falsifying police reports, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice. He's led out of the precinct in handcuffs. This time, the cameras are waiting. At the hospital, the atmosphere is cautiously joyful. In the pediatric wing, Amira walks beside her dad, hand in hand. Do people still think you're bad? She asks. Elijah kneels beside her. Some might, but now more people know the truth, and we help them see it. She looks up. Can I tell my class what happened? He smiles. You can tell them whatever you want. You lived it too. In the staff lounge, Jasmine, Brenda, Evelyn, and Malik sit around a table, exhausted but proud. It's not over, Malik says. There's always another Mason out there, another cover-up. But now, Evelyn replies, there's also a blueprint, a way to fight back and win. Brenda looks out the window toward the precinct building down the block. I don't regret speaking up, she says. I regret waiting so long. Evelyn stands. The next person won't have to, because of you. That night, Elijah walks through the hospital one last time before heading home. The hallways are humming again, lights glowing, life returning. He passes the plaque and stops, fingers brushing against the etched letters. A nurse walks by and says quietly, "Good to have you back, Dr. Brooks." He nods. Good to be back. Because reopening the doors wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new standard. The impact of Brookridge begins to spread like ripples in still water. Quiet at first, then undeniable. In a small town 200 miles away, a group of nurses walks out of their hospital in protest after a black physician is denied a leadership position without explanation. In a city across the state, a body cam policy review is launched after activists cite the Brooks Act as precedent. In classrooms, law professors assign the Elijah Brooks case as part of their curriculum on systemic accountability. Elijah doesn't see all of this at once. He's too busy adjusting to life that, on the surface, looks normal again. He's back in surgery. His hands are steady, his voice calm. He jokes with nurses, comforts families, reads reports deep into the night. But the weight is still there, quietly lingering behind his eyes. In the break room, Jasmine watches him sip cold coffee during a rare 5-minute pause. "You ever think about what would have happened if there hadn't been a camera that day?" she asks softly. He nods without looking up. All the time. They sit in silence. No words needed. Meanwhile, Evelyn attends a policy roundtable in D.C., invited by a coalition of lawmakers interested in replicating the Brooks Act on a national level. At the table are legal scholars, civil rights leaders, and physicians. This bill started in one hospital lobby, Evelyn tells them, but it belongs in every state house. Not because it's perfect, because it's proof that silence can be broken by action. Brenda Harlan, reinstated by public support and now assigned to the department's new Community Integrity Division, speaks at a high school criminal justice class. She holds up her badge. "If you wear this and you're afraid of accountability, you're not doing your job. You're dodging it." The students nod, some silently, others visibly inspired. One girl raises her hand. "Do you think anything really changed?" Brenda pauses. "Yes, not everything, but something. And that something is how everything else begins." Back at St. Catherine's, Elijah is asked to deliver the keynote at the annual citywide medical ethics conference. He hesitates at first, but eventually agrees. On stage, he faces a sea of white coats and stethoscopes. "I used to think saving lives meant doing the work quietly," he begins. "But I've learned something else. Sometimes saving lives means getting loud. Sometimes it means refusing to walk past what's wrong, even when it's not in your job description." He looks out across the room, his voice steady. "We don't get to pick when history taps us on the shoulder, but we do get to decide what we say when it does." The room rises in applause, not polite, not performative, but full and sustained. Afterward, an older doctor approaches him. "I've been practicing medicine for 40 years, the man says. "I've never seen anyone fight like you did and still return to the ward. You didn't just protect the job, you elevated it." Elijah thanks him, but inside, he doesn't feel heroic. He feels responsible. Because now he knows how fragile dignity can be and how powerful it is when reclaimed. Because the story didn't end when the hospital reopened. It grew legs, found new voices, and kept walking. 3 weeks after the Brooks Act passed, the glow of progress begins to flicker beneath the weight of resistance. In Brookridge's wealthier districts, local police unions host private fundraisers labeled "Support the Badge." Flyers feature half-truths and misleading claims. Doctors should stick to medicine, not politics. The Brooks Act ties officers' hands in dangerous situations. At city council meetings, a small but vocal group begins demanding the repeal of key sections of the bill. Their argument? Overcorrection. They claim it's making officers hesitate, hurting morale, endangering public safety. Elijah watches one of the town halls on TV, jaw clenched. "They're spinning it," he mutters, "like what happened to me was just unfortunate protocol." Jasmine places a hand on his shoulder. "You knew this wouldn't be a clean win. I just didn't think they'd try to erase the meaning this quickly." At the hospital, some younger doctors express worry that taking a stand could cost them future promotions or research grants. Others admit they've started receiving veiled warnings from old colleagues. "I support Dr. Brooks," one resident says in private, "but I can't afford to be seen in the spotlight. Not yet." The wear is beginning to show. On Elijah. On the movement. Even on Evelyn. At her law office, Evelyn stares at a wall of case files. New complaints, old patterns, fresh resistance. Malik enters with a laptop under his arm. "I've got something." He pulls up a video. a school assembly in a small city 2 hours away. On stage is a 7th grader named Amira Brooks, reading from a folded piece of paper. I saw my dad get arrested, and I saw people lie about why, but then I saw people stand up, and because they stood, the law changed. So maybe I'll be a lawyer, or a doctor, or a teacher, but I'll never be afraid to say something when it's wrong. The room applauds. Malik smiles. She wrote that last night. Jasmine filmed it. Evelyn watches the clip twice, then closes her eyes. That's why we keep going. Later that week, a surprise development changes everything again. A group of emergency responders from another state files a joint civil suit using the Brooks Act as precedent. Their case? Racial profiling and targeted discipline in their hospital's chain of command. Elijah receives a letter from one of the plaintiffs. It reads, "Your story reminded us we weren't crazy, and that silence isn't the same as peace." Meanwhile, at Brookridge PD, a new acting chief is appointed. She holds a press conference flanked by community leaders, including Brenda Harlan. "I'm not here to defend what came before me," the chief says. "I'm here to rebuild what they broke." She outlines plans to enforce the Brooks Act internally, create anonymous officer reporting channels, and launch community review councils in all city districts. Brenda speaks briefly too. Accountability isn't punishment, it's maintenance, and this department has gone too long without oil. At St. Catherine's, Elijah returns to the pediatric unit. A new father shakes his hand with gratitude, not recognition. "You're the reason this hospital runs different," he says. "Thank you." Elijah smiles. "No, it's running better because people stop pretending it couldn't. Because when the dust settles, the question isn't whether change happened. It's whether we had the courage to protect it once it did." It's a quiet Saturday morning when Elijah finds himself back in the same playground where it all began. The trees sway gently. Children laugh in the distance. The benches are freshly painted and the cracked pavement near the slide has been replaced. It looks brighter somehow, like the neighborhood has taken a breath it didn't know it was holding. He sits on the same bench where Jasmine once held Amira after the arrest and watches his daughter now, running freely, braids bouncing, unbothered by the memory her father can't forget. Behind him, footsteps approach. "Figured I'd find you here," says Evelyn, holding a folded newspaper. It's official. The Federal Oversight Committee has adopted key parts of the Brooks Act as a national recommendation. She hands him the paper. The headline reads, "One law, 50 states, Brooks Act becomes national guideline for police reform." Elijah blinks at the headline, overwhelmed. "I never wanted to be the center of this," he murmurs. Evelyn nods. "You weren't. You were the start of it." They sit in silence for a moment, both watching Amira chase a bubble drifting through the breeze. "I keep wondering," Elijah says, "what would have happened if the dashcam hadn't been rolling? If Tanya hadn't filmed? If people had just moved on?" "They didn't," Evelyn says. "And that's the point." Meanwhile, at City Hall, the new Community Oversight Council meets for the first time. Brenda chairs the session. Long table are teachers, nurses, clergy, youth organizers, and former officers. Not one wears a suit. Brenda opens with a simple statement. This isn't about watching the police, it's about watching out for the people. The agenda includes civilian access to complaint records, quarterly transparency reports, and mediation programs between officers and community leaders. Across town, Malik broadcasts a live panel with whistleblowers from other cities inspired by the Brookridge model. One EMT describes how his department added cultural sensitivity training for all new hires. Another describes starting a grassroots movement called Healers First. "This isn't just reform," Malik says into the camera, "it's evolution." Back at St. Catherine's, the hospital holds a commemorative event. Not a celebration, but a reflection. The lobby is filled with photos. The day the hospital closed its doors, the staff meetings by candlelight, the reopening day, the hearings, and a picture of Elijah, Jasmine, and Amira standing hand in hand under the "Justice Has Arrived" banner. Dr. Patel takes the mic. "This building didn't save Dr. Brooks. He saved it, by forcing us to see what we were willing to risk everything for." The crowd applauds, soft but powerful. Later that evening, Elijah walks the halls alone. He passes the trauma bay, where his arrest had been announced over whispers. He passes the staff lounge, where unity was born. He passes the pediatric ward, where his daughter once asked if people still hated him. And finally, he stops at the new mural near the main entrance. It shows an open hospital door, light pouring out, people entering from all walks of life, hands on each other's backs. Above it, a quote, "When dignity is defended, healing begins." Dr. Elijah Brooks. He stares at it for a long moment, not for pride, not for closure, for the reminder. Because movements fade, but legacies walk quietly behind us, lighting the path for whoever comes next. It's nearly midnight when Elijah receives a message from a young intern he mentored 2 years ago. Her name is Kiara. She's now in her final year of med school. The message reads, "I almost dropped out. Then I saw what you did, what you endured, what you changed. Thank you for reminding me that being a doctor means more than just healing bodies." Elijah stares at the screen for a while, then closes his laptop, a faint smile curling at the edge of his lips. In the quiet of his home office, he glances over at a box filled with papers. Notes from the hearings, court documents, newspaper clippings, photos of the protest outside the hospital. He hasn't had the heart to throw them away. Not yet. The world around him is quieter now, but he knows better than to mistake quiet for peace. Across the country, new cities begin proposing their own local versions of the Brooks Act. The bill has sparked a blueprint. Community oversight boards, officer accountability measures, medical advocacy protections. Yet with every step forward, there are new shadows. Anonymous threats still appear in comment sections. Protesters still face pushback, and the pressure to move on begins to return. One news anchor asks on live television, "Hasn't enough been done?" Elijah's answer, when asked the same question at a university forum, is simple. No, enough is when it stops happening. In her office, Evelyn prepares a manuscript titled, "Shut Down to Stand Up: The Fight for Dr. Brooks and the Battle for Reform." A publisher has offered to distribute it nationally. She debates including a final chapter, a personal reflection. But something inside her says, "It's not my story to finish." Instead, she writes a dedication. To those who risked comfort to protect dignity. You didn't just witness history, you shaped it. At St. Catherine's, a new group of medical residents begins orientation. Dr. Brooks is scheduled to speak. As he walks into the conference room, the room goes silent. Not out of fear, but respect. They all know his story. Many of them applied specifically to train at his hospital. He doesn't talk about the arrest, or the law, or the fame. He talks about the moment in the ER when every second counts, about the hands that tremble before a first incision, about the sacred trust between healer and patient, and then he says something that stays with them long after he leaves the room. There will be days when the world doesn't want you to matter. Your job, your oath, is to matter anyway. Later that night, he walks past the mural at the front of the hospital again. This time, a small group of med students is taking photos with it. One of them turns and sees him. "Dr. Brooks," she says nervously, "thank you for everything." He nods once. "Keep going, it's your story now." Because the goal was never to become the hero. It was to make sure no one else had to be. The anniversary of Elijah Brooks' arrest arrives with little ceremony. No press conferences, no major events, just a quiet shift on a Tuesday where life at St. Catherine's hums on like it always has, except now with a deeper pulse under the surface. Elijah begins his morning checking charts, consulting with residents, and reviewing a new protocol for emergency trauma response. At one point, he passes the hallway where 1 year ago he was dragged out in handcuffs. No one mentions it, but they all remember. In the lobby, a small group of medical students has left a handwritten note under the mural. Elijah finds it as he walks out for a coffee break. It reads, "This place means something because you stayed." He folds the note gently and places it in his coat pocket. Across town, Brenda Harlan meets with the newly appointed chief of police. She presents her final report as chair of the Community Oversight Council. Her tone is clear. "We've made progress, but policy without culture is decoration. Keep pushing." The chief nods. "We will." In her last act as chair, Brenda organizes a community roundtable, open to the public, no podiums, no speeches. Just people talking, listening, rebuilding trust not through slogans but through presence. Evelyn, meanwhile, finishes her second book. The final chapter, titled Still Open, ends with a message that reflects what she's come to believe. Justice is not a verdict, it's a practice, a discipline. A daily decision to show up for each other when systems fail. She sends a signed copy to Elijah, who reads it in his office after his shift ends. He closes the book slowly and stares at the hospital walls. For a long time, they were a symbol of a system that betrayed him. Now, they're a testament to what happens when people refuse to let injustice define the narrative. That evening, Elijah returns home late. Jasmine is grading papers at the kitchen table. Amira is asleep upstairs. He places the student's note beside the fridge and pours a glass of water. The hum of their home feels heavier tonight, not with sadness, but with weight earned. Jasmine looks up. "You okay?" He nods. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" He shrugs. "How everything changed, and how some things didn't." They sit in that calm for a moment. Then Jasmine says, "The door's still open. That means you did something right." He smiles. The next day, Elijah walks into the hospital and sees something new on the staff bulletin board, a flyer for a mentorship program called Brooks Fellows. It's designed to pair senior doctors with underrepresented med students across the state. He hadn't heard about it. It wasn't his idea, but it has his name on it. He smiles as he pins it straighter on the board. Because movements begin with sparks, but legacies? They quietly build fires in places we may never see. Because justice doesn't end with punishment. It ends with possibility. And it begins again every time someone chooses to act.